All right, welcome back to the channel. So it seems that Bernard Hopkins, probably talking out the side of his neck, is trying to push for a fight with Jamal, Charlo, and Canelo Alvarez. Please, 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 can we have that fight? There are many fights in boxing that are big fights, key fights within weight divisions. There are actually not a lot. There are some major fights that are out there that are important for certain weight divisions, and this fight is one. Let's talk about what Bernard Hopkins had to say, the likelihood of Canelo Alvarez and Charlo fighting in this video. All right, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So Bernard Hopkins, who is a co-owner, I don't know, is he an owner, a co-worker? He's a partner. Partner is probably the best way to say that. A partner in Golden Boy Promotions, along with Oscar De La Hoya, one of the top promotional companies in the United States and therefore in the world. And their prized possession over there in a somewhat rebuilding Golden Boy stable is Canelo Alvarez. And the reason why I say they're somewhat rebuilding is because before there was that, Golden Boy Promotions was the PBC before there was a PBC. But Oscar De La Hoya just twisted it all off and lost the biggest boxing organization that probably, Golden Boy Promotions was killing it when they were working with Floyd Mayweather Jr. But pride and stubbornness and a little alcoholism, maybe, a couple girls doing funny business to you, might have distracted De La Hoya a little bit. But now, though, it seems like he is rebuilding a little bit. He has one of the biggest names in boxing, Canelo Alvarez, one of the best fighters in boxing in Canelo Alvarez. He also has a young up and coming fighter named Ryan Garcia that's making some waves, got a really good personality, good fighter as well. Got Virgil Ortiz, another young Mexican fighter out of Dallas that looks like he's a big killer heading for the 147, 154, and 160 pound divisions. So things are looking a little bit up as far as, what Golden Boy has to offer. But one thing that they have not been able to do or not been willing to do is set up Canelo Alvarez with the person that I think is a surefire, successful fight against, and that is Jamal Charlo. Right now, as we've been talking, and even Bernard Hopkins talking about this fight between Jamal Charlo and Canelo is a little bit of a surprise to me because of the names that you've been heard bantied about for Canelo Alvarez recently, and they all revolve around people that are fighting on the zone. And people, might I add, that I don't think anybody thinks has a snowball's chance in hell of beating Canelo Alvarez. Those fighters being Gennady Golovkin, Triple G. He already had two fights with Gennady Golovkin. One was a draw that everybody cried was the biggest robbery known to mankind, and the other one was a fight where I thought Canelo Alvarez beat him just handily. Not only did he beat Gennady Golovkin handily, he beat him in the way that Gennady Golovkin said he wanted to fight, which made it even worse. Stood right there in front of him, beat him up, made Gennady Golovkin miss right in the center of the ring. Didn't have to lay up on the ropes to do it. Did it right in the middle of the ring. Beat Gennady Golovkin. That's pushing on 2 years ago now. That was in 2018. So, we're walking up by the time the rematch would have happened is 2 years from now, 2 years later. So why exactly anybody would be too excited about seeing a fight that we've already seen twice and know damn well what the outcome would be is beyond me. The other guys that he's talking about fighting are Liam Smith, the 100 and Callum Smith, excuse me, is the brother of Liam Smith. Callum Smith, who from the UK, who's a 168-pound champion, who just looked like garbage against somebody that he got a decision against, but many people thought he lost the fight. Can't remember the name of the fighter. It was a UK fighter. a good fighter, but not somebody that, you would think would be, seriously competing for the WBA 168 pound title. So he looks a little bit shabby. And then, and Saunders as well. Saunders, who tested positive for the use of a performance enhancing drug and got stripped of his 160 pound IBF title and had a fight against Demetrius Andre canceled because of it. He's now at the WBO champion at 168 pounds, and he looked like he was losing against some Argentine guy who you ain't never heard of. Now, credit to Argentine fighters. They have a way of doing that to people, between Marcos Maidana and Sergio Martinez. Guys like that, they have this style, man, very athletic. They're tricky and awkward, many of them. And, so they can screw around and beat somebody if they don't think, if they don't see him coming. But anyway, Billy Joe Saunders got out of that by the hair of his, he got out of there with a knockout because the guy slipped up, but still looked really, really vulnerable. And none of those guys, Saunders, Smith, but maybe GGG, actually has any interest for people in the United States, the place where Canelo Alvarez fights. The only ones that have any interest in seeing him, the only people that they have any interest in seeing is maybe Gennady Golovkin. Now, the Charlo, on the other hand, is a fight that should have happened for Canelo Alvarez. They were both in the same weight class at the same time at 154 pounds. Canelo Alvarez has been, if you don't recall, Canelo Alvarez used to fight on what you could basically call PBC cards, because it was the same set of fighters that eventually broke off to the PBC, while Canelo and Oscar De La Hoya signed a big deal to go over there to HBO. But before that, you notice that Canelo Alvarez was fighting a lot of PBC fighters. He fought Aries Landy Lara. Two big examples is Aries Landy Lara and Austin Trout. All that stuff stopped when Oscar De La Hoya took Canelo Alvarez over there left Showtime and went to HBO. But while he was there, so was Jamal Charlo. And at 154 pounds, the same weight class that Canelo Alvarez started with. The reason that Jamal Charlo right now is a champion at 160 pounds is because Canelo Alvarez got this franchise title so he could avoid taking that fight. Well, at least I don't know if it's because he was trying to avoid the fight. I think it's reasonable to assume that he was trying to avoid that fight, because other than that, there was no reason whatsoever. Because what the franchise championship does is it allows you not to have to defend your title against mandatories. The only other time that was used was subsequent to that with Vasily Lomachenko and Devin Haney. So it just seems like it might even be like, it's just ironic how they do that, right? You have a fighter, you got to fight one fighter who's a big time money guy, and they get a mandatory that they could really be a test for them, right? Same thing for Lomachenko and Devin Haney, and the WBC, upon request of the promoters, make up some fantasy championship and allow them to take that title but never have to defend against the tough fighters that are there. It's an absolute tragedy. So there's no reason in the world for somebody to say that Canelo Alvarez didn't do that on purpose. That's not by design. So the beautiful thing about this fight with Canelo and Charlo was, one, it is, like I said, it's one of the few fights in boxing where there is really an organic demand between the fan bases for that fight. Okay, Jamal Charlo has a fan base that is distinct from Canelo Alvarez. The Canelo Alvarez probably is not tapped into since the Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight. Canelo Alvarez and Jamal Charlo were the same age. They've been in the same weight class for multiple years. Canelo Alvarez knows damn well who Jamal Charlo is. Everybody that talks about that fight knows who Jamal Charlo is. Jamal Charlo has already proven himself. Make the fight between the two. Now, how that fight is going to actually, going to, whether or not that's going to take place, you got all kind of burdens, and barriers up to stuff. So, for example, they still work for different promotional companies or, different boxing organizations. The PBC for Charlo and Golden Boy / DAZN for Canelo Alvarez. So there's going to be difficulties making the fight, and there's also a potential that maybe it's something that Bernard Hopkins knows should happen. But Bernard Hopkins, like I said, is a partner in that organization. He's not the guy that's running it. And honestly, Oscar De La Hoya is the guy that's supposed to be running the company, but I don't think he runs Canelo at all, since Canelo is the vast majority of his revenue. And if Canelo Alvarez doesn't fight him, they're gonna go belly up because they don't have anybody else at this point. Now, I did mention that they have some younger fighters that are coming up that might be able to replace Canelo. I don't even know that they'll be able to replace Canelo, because I don't know what what Floyd Mayweather Jr. there is out there that is going to put these guys on their undercard and allow them to build their names off of them, just like Floyd Mayweather Jr. did and Mayweather Promotions did for Canelo Alvarez. So, but regardless, it's going to be up to Canelo to make that fight. Canelo, to me, seems like he's the kind of guy that would make the fight. DAZN, though, I don't think they very much like the idea of him fighting a Jermall Charlo or him fighting a Demetrius Andrade. I think that they're the guys that run that have this cookie cutter idea about what fights are going to be successful, and they stick to those. And by and large, they haven't been. They make the fights that they think will work. They don't make that's a better way to say it. They make the fights that they think would be good, but they do not necessarily what if you stick your ear to the ground and listen to what boxing fans are looking for. That fight is Canelo Alvarez versus Charlo. It's not as big and pressed a fight as Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, but it is at least should be the level of interest that there is for Gervonta Davis and Vasily Lomachenko. That type of matchup where people really want to know what's going to happen because these guys are the same size. But anyway, that's my take on the situation. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.